It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Mike Evans. I will be your host this morning. Glad to be with you. You know, we've been covering some issues over the course of the last couple of days that were kind of interesting, not the least of which is this VA debacle that we've been dealing with. But, you know, it's very interesting because the other day we had a problem with the VA in reference to all of the challenges that are associated with, you know, the betrayal. And the Senate yesterday tried to pass a new piece of legislation that would effectively have made, and here's what you have to understand. The rub here is that it would have effectively changed the law and the rules to allow people who are malfeasant in their job function to actually be fired. Now, most of us who are in the private world and not in the public employee arena look at that and say, excuse me, I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about. Well, for the record, you can't be fired if you're a federal employee. That's what the reality is. You cannot be fired if you're an employee. And so the issue is, I'm sending a text message because we're trying to get our phone lines functioning. We've been testing a new phone system. And so here's the reality, folks. You cannot be fired if you're an employee of the federal system. No matter how bad the treatment of the people that are your patients, no matter how bad the behavior of you as an employee, no matter how bad. Now, yesterday, Bernie Sanders came out and he stormed out there on the Senate floor and he said, we cannot pass this bill because we have not been able to read it. And most Americans said, yeah, that's right, Bernie, go for it. Ladies and gentlemen, the bill was only 3 pages long. 2.5 if you strip off the header. It's unconscionable that Bernie Sanders would have done that. Now, he calls himself an independent, but he's actually an avowed socialist, which he even admits to. And the piece of legislation was specifically designed to allow federal employees who have been found to be malfeasant canned. Where are we when we know and realize that our nation has utterly failed to the extent that where we are with employment for the federal government means that the public service unions are more powerful than the Senate itself? Because that's the truth. That's the truth. Our second segment this morning will be the IRS Bounty. We're going to create a brand new hashtag, and I'd like you to start using it if you're a Twitter user. If you're not, become a Twitter user and start using it. We're going to do a play on words here. The IRS Bounty of $1 million is available for any whistleblower who will come forward. We're going to talk about that in the second segment. But the brand new hashtag that every American should be using is Mutiny Bounty. Not mutiny on the bounty, but Mutiny Bounty. In other words, a bounty for mutiny. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's time that we mutiny. Hello. Think I'm kidding? Time's up. And it's time that we actually resolve these problems. Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, Mr. Evans.
Good. What do you think of that hashtag? Mutiny Bounty.
Mutiny.
Not mutiny on the bounty, a bounty for mutiny. I think it's brilliant, and if I do say so myself, and I thought it up just this morning. Mutiny Bounty.
Mutiny.
I think it's workable. It's easy. Everybody can remember it. And if we had enough people rallied around it, we'd actually be able to accomplish something with it. What do you think?
Well, create it. Yeah, go ahead and create it.
I already did. All you got to do is start using it. So you put the pound sign before the words Mutiny Bounty and tie the words together, no space. So it's just pound, mutiny, no space, bounty. And that way you can send out any message you want there, including a link to the website where you can go, which, by the way, I'll give you guys when we hit that segment. But the point is, if we don't start to take control of this thing in some way, shape, or form, then, for all intents and purposes, we've got to just kind of conclude and admit that it's over and it's done with and we've lost. And I'm not willing to concede.
Yes.
I'm not willing to concede.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, we have couch potato patriots. I mean, that's
our founders called them sunshine patriots.
Sunshine patriots.
They were strong when when the sun was shining. They were out there. Yeah, we're fighting for it. Rah rah rah. But when it really came down to it,
oh yeah, it's kind of like I tell my friends all the time that you can't complain about the government when you don't go vote yourself.
Right.
Exactly. So that's the first thing I ask is that, did you go vote?
Right.
I mean, are you active?
Well,
and that doesn't mean just vote presidential. That means, did you go vote for your school board, for your police sheriff? Did you, are you involved locally? Until you are, then I don't want to talk about it.
Agreed.
Have a nice day. So.
Well, the website, by the way, folks, is IRS Bounty, irsbounty.com. Now, for the record, I'm promoting this whole thing. Yesterday I talked about the idea of every American, and I narrowed it down to the 20 million of us who are actually willing to stand up and fight, right? And if each of us kicked in $5, that would give us a $100 million pool, which would enable us to put a $1 million bounty out on 100 for 100 whistleblowers. And I'm not just limiting it to the IRS. I want it in the EPA. I want it to be functional in virtually any and every area that we can. I mean, it can work for the Department of the Interior. It could work for the IRS. It could work for the FBI, the ATF, the NSA, anybody.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. A lot of Americans. I'm going to give you a legal term. It's called a QTAM. QTAM is a legal term, and people are protected under the whistleblower law. And the way
they're protected under the whistleblower law. But look what happens to these people who have been coming out for years now, exposing what's going on in the VA.
Well, no. What you have to do, though, this is the problem. What you have to do is you have to actually file the lawsuit yourself, and it's called a QTAM lawsuit. And basically, what happens is you get a percentage of what you uncover. And I know individuals. I know of one individual who, it's kind of ironic though. He owned a hospital in Chicago, and he was prosecuted under the Clinton administration about $15 million. His hospital was fined for inappropriate billing of Medicare, Medicaid patients, which it's kind of crazy. It was well known that it was a government fundraising effort by Clinton because they got everybody. They got every hospital. They said, "Oh, you guys have been billing Medicare, Medicaid wrong for the last 5 years," and it was across the board fine. So it just wasn't. But he owned the hospital, so he had to pay it. So he actually paid the fines, He didn't, not like a corporation where they negotiate. He actually wrote the check for $15 million personally out of his account. And what's crazy is about 10 years later, he filed a QTAM against the federal government and got it and uncovered a massive amount of Medicare Medicaid fraud in the state of Florida for home health care. And he filed a QTAM, and he ended up sharing in the revenue that they saved, when they prosecute. So it can be done, and that's what needs to happen. It's a little known fact that.
Well, that requires you be, but here's the problem. That requires you be an employee of the federal government in order to properly file that.
No, not really. If you have inside information on any fraudulent action with anybody that does business with the government or the government itself, and you could be an outside member, you could be, and you file the QTAM.
So, here's my solution.
Find a lawyer.
Here's my solution. Rather than all of us trying to gather together to win lawsuits against the federal government that ultimately we're all going to have to pay, let's just all kick in $5 into the Mutiny Bounty Fund and start making sure that we're routing out poison and we're routing out the virus within our government, and we're doing it as I hear from individuals all the time. What can I do? I'm only one person. My vote doesn't count. I can't call my senator anymore. They hang up on me. They ignore me. I post on Facebook. Nobody cares. I've written stories, articles, letters. Nobody cares. Great. Let's put our money where our mouth is and start bribing people to come out here and spill the beans. Now, I get it. I mean, right off the bat, that means that we've got to wait for the scummy likes of Eric Holder and so forth to actually do something about it when we expose it. But here's the point. Nothing at this stage in the game gets Americans more riled than seeing, waste and fraud and abuse in our own government. And it's rampant and it's everywhere. It's not even hard to find. So, but we don't have the empirical proof to be, and that's why I came up with the idea of the civilian ombudsman as well. That these civilian ombudsmen would be able to go in there and say, I don't work for you. I don't owe you any answers. The only answers I owe are to the American people, and I spill my guts to them on a national website that they can come and get a weekly or a monthly or a quarterly report, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Now, the point is we can't ask the federal government to allow those ombudsmen there. They have to be, and it's going to be a hostile environment, I guarantee it.
Oh, yeah.
But we have an obligation to ourselves, and frankly, that's about the only way we're going to be able to get this thing under control. So,
and this is the problem that I have with mainstream media. That was the purpose, and that's why the mainstream media or the media, they were given the amendment. That's why the freedom of speech and all of that was put into the Constitution, because, this is the job of media. This was typically or traditionally was the job of media. Watergate was uncovered because of the Washington Post. A lot of Iran-Contra was uncovered because of the media. A lot of these things, but see, this is the thing, is that you have a president who is media savvy. This president has built his whole empire, and I'm going to call it an empire. Call it what you want, but I'm going to call it an empire on the use of the media. His guys, Bill Ayers, all of those guys are media are just media experts. They destroy. I've seen it firsthand in Chicago, living here and being here, that they destroy individuals through the media, not through their true character or whatever, but through the media. And I'm not saying the Bill Ayers character, because we know what scumbag he is. But what I'm saying is that they actually attacked when Obama was running for Senate. Very good men attacked them through media, pulled up things that they did in college, which you can't hold what a person does in college over their heads. I mean,
Well, suffice it to say, suffice it to say, the reality is that everything in this system right now is beyond salvage at this stage, and that's really where we need to be. So I'm gonna just take the last. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, instead of I want to circle back to your other point. There's a bet on. I mean, as everybody knows, or people that know me from being on some of the other shows, we're moving to Florida. There's a bet on how quick I'm going to become the mayor or the sheriff in the new town that we're moving into. I say 2 years, but I mean to that point, what I'm telling people is, if you've thrown up your hands to what goes on in Washington D.C., which I understand that because I pretty much have too. That doesn't mean you still have local government. And if you really want to affect change, get inside the local government. That's easy to do. That's not hard. It requires you to get off your butt and do something, but it's not as difficult, obviously, than running for as a Senate seat or a House Republican or a House Republican, House seat or whatever. But get into your local, get into your school boards, go to your local meetings, do that. Those positions open up pretty much every 2 years. And most citizens can run. Once you're into those positions, then you can start influencing change. When the federal government comes to your sheriff's department and says, look, we're going to give you $1 million grant, but you're going to have to buy this militarized vehicle and everything, if you're sitting on the board of your local community, can say, well, we don't want you here. We don't want you. And you know what? When you start turning away their money, and they're like a drug they're drug dealers. That's basically what they do. They get communities hooked on the federal money, and you start turning that stuff away. You're going to start influencing change. People are going to start taking notice, and you'll see. And that's
all politics is local, and that's the only way to control it. There's no doubt about it. So.
Yep, absolutely. So you take care, my friend. You have a great day.
Thanks.
And I love the new phone system. I love the fact that I can talk to you.
It's awesome, and we've had struggled so long and so hard to try to make phone systems work that we could rely on, and it's been nothing but problematic. And this is an absolute blessing. So I'm thrilled with it. Thank you. So
all right,
all right, we'll talk to you soon.
Yep.
Folks, if you'd like to call into the program, you can. It's 573-453-5505. That's 573-453-5505. All right, so our first segment is this 3-page VA accountability bill was blocked by the Senate. I mean, that's an absolute outrage. Our second issue is the IRS Bounty for information and the new hashtag #Mutiny Bounty. Our third segment is going to be federal land takeovers that leave our borders wide open. Many of you may or may not be aware that the federal government is going to be leading or driving a brand new designation for a massive land takeover, that a new national monument that is going to cover a vast territory that, by the way, bumps right up against the border, but it prohibits and blocks all access to that federal land, including from law enforcement, not to mention the fact that it bars access to that land for things like drilling and access to the natural resources, blocking pipelines and so forth and so on. So we're going to address that in our third segment. And in our fourth segment, Secretary of Defense Hagel came out yesterday and said what we all know has been going on, but really haven't actually had the opportunity to hear right out of the horse's mouth. Did I pause there just long enough for you to get the gist? I got you. Here's what he had to say. He admits that the New World Order is being built, and I'm going to let you hear it right out of the horse's mouth. All right. Here's the real challenge, America. Whether or not you recognize how far we've come on this thing, we are at a time in terms of being able to take back our country, and frankly, I don't know what people are waiting for. This issue here of the Senate refusing and blocking this bill that would increase accountability, and this is only the Department of the VA. This wasn't for all federal employees because, again, remember, you can't sue. You can't fire a federal employee. It's almost impossible. And they're public service unions, which frankly should be disbanded. The whole argument of a public service union that actually protects you from the government, which is supposed to be protecting all of us, is an oxymoron. I mean, it's insane. The fact that it was blocked is unconscionable. And Sanders, I mean, this guy is just, it's unforgivable. Literally unforgivable. Listen to this.
We need to step up to the plate to help not only our veterans but their families. And that's the legislation that I have offered. So what I say to Senator Rubio, your legislation has many important provisions which I happen to agree with. There are some that I think need work on, and we are going to hold a hearing on that legislation and other legislation in early June. So
blah, 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 blah. We're going to hold another hearing. We're going to accomplish nothing. Meanwhile, we had a three-page bill that could have resolved the problem of at least allowing us to be able to fire people who are dealing drugs, beating on patients, refusing to take care of patients, and he blocks it. He blocks it with the argument that no one can argue with. The Senate hasn't had a chance to read it. The only problem, ladies and gentlemen, it was only a 3-page bill. They could have read it from the time they left their office, walking in the hallways and standing in the elevator, to the time they actually had to go vote. You see, this is unforgivable. And I got to tell you, this thing with Sanders, this was a setup. A bunch of Democrats voted for it in the House. But they knew that Sanders was going to block the bill when it made it to the Senate. So it was a gimme vote. It was a freebie. They knew that the bill was never going to get passed. But now they can go home to their constituents and say, well, I voted for it. It's all a sham, ladies and gentlemen. And frankly, I don't know about you, but I am just sick to death of shams, lies, betrayal, and Americans paying the ultimate price. Not only our veterans who are paying the price in pain and injury and the decline of their physical health, much of which was caused by the actual military and the government itself that is supposed to be taking care of them. I mean, okay, we're out of time on this segment. I'm just, man, I tell you what. When we come back, we're going to talk about the IRS bounty for information. Do yourself and me a favor. We've been trying to raise some funds here on America's Voice Now. You can donate directly on our website at americasvoicenow.org through PayPal. You can also mail us a check if you prefer, or a money order. We are desperately in need of your support and your funding. You can mail it to America's Voice Now, P.O. Box 1195. That's 1195, West Plains, Missouri 65775. Or you can go to our website at americasvoicenow.org. Use PayPal there. In addition to that, you can also go, if you're in need of a resume tune-up, you can go to AmericanResumeService.com. AmericanResumeService.com. There, you can get their $200 resume package for $100, and they will donate the whole $100 to America's Voice Now. So you can get yourself a brand new, refreshed, and cleaned up resume with all the pertinent facts that are currently being looked at for jobs. And let's face it, the job arena out there is very competitive. And at the same point in time, you can help support America's Voice Now. It's a win-win situation. We're going to take a quick break. Make sure that you visit our friends over at Battery Station. You can reach them at batterystation.com. Batterystation.com. You can also call them at 417-257-7799, or you can visit them at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains, where you can find everything for batteries and everything for your bug-out bag, your survival needs, your long-term self-reliance needs. They are an outstanding company. We'll be right back. Guys are going to have to forgive me if I'm a little spastic on the controls for the next couple of days. The fellow who spoke to us in our first segment, Jeff Norton, is the host of he's the host of Patriot FB and Patriot FB Radio. But in addition to that, which you can get to by going to patriotfb.com or patriotfbradio.com, but he's also the host of Midnight Patriot. And he has put together this new phone system that we're working on and working under right now. It will enable you to communicate with us during a live performance or a live program, and contact us and have your input in on a discussion. You know, it's been so long since I was able to bring phone calls onto the board that you're just going to have to forgive me if I fumble for a little bit till I get the strokes down. So that's what it is. If you'd like to contact us and participate in the program, you can call us at 573-453-5505. That's 573-453-5505. Now, in addition to that, if you'd like to communicate or listen to AVN at your leisure, because you can't necessarily do it while the program is operational, then you can always call our listen line. That number is 415-325-0725. That's 415-325-0725. That number is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and after about 10 o'clock in the morning, after our live program is over, you can listen to the program at your leisure for the remainder of the day or night. And so if you're traveling, you're going to be in the car for a while, you can just call in on your cell phone or your home phone, and it's a free service that's offered to us by a company called Audio Now, which I'm very grateful and appreciative for their efforts. And it's a great way for you to listen to the program and or share it with friends. 415-325-0725. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this IRS, the IRS Bounty for information. Yesterday, I talked to you extensively about this, and the idea is that Catherine Albrecht has come out and made the statement that she is going to put together a fund that will enable individuals to crowdsource fund a $1 million bounty. And the bounty is to anyone in the IRS who will come out and be a whistleblower and expose, and it has to be brand new information. I mean, there's some limitations to it. You know, it has to be new information, it has to be verifiable, and it has to be able to convict people within the IRS for the betrayal of what they did and the use of the IRS as a weapon of mass destruction against the United States of America and the enemies of the Obama administration, or any other administration for that matter, by the way. Now, this is a different concept, and I actually I wish I had thought of it because I love it. And what it really is a crowdsource or crowd-funded award for new and relevant evidence that implicates IRS senior leadership or the Obama White House and any officials surrounding it on the IRS scandal. Basically, doesn't it suck that we've gotten down to the point where we have to bribe people to come out and whistleblow to hold the government accountable? But, hey, you know what? If that's what it takes, I'm all for it. I actually want to take it one step further. I want to actually take it to the point where we build a fund where everyone, and I went through the numbers on this yesterday, there's an estimated 20 million of us who are real serious patriots. 20 million of us, if we each donated $5, we could take that money, and so that would be $100 million, and come up with 100 pools of cash that could be used, not just for the IRS, but the EPA, the ATF, the EPA. Yeah, the list is endless. I mean, there's no limit. The truth is, America, that's one way that we can fight back. Now, Megyn Kelly yesterday interviewed Ms. Albrecht the other day and I want to play that segment for you because I think it was important. It's only a couple minutes, but I think it was an important one. Just bear with us.
The Kelly File exclusive. We are also tracking a new effort tonight to get more information on the IRS's targeting of conservative groups. In a unique new twist, one political group that was targeted is now offering up to $1 million for anyone who provides information leading to the conviction of anyone involved in this scandal. Catherine Engelbrecht is one of the alleged victims, as I mentioned, of the IRS targeting. She's the founder of True the Vote, and she has joined this campaign. Catherine, good to see you. It's interesting to hear J. Christian Adams talk about Elijah Cummings and his role on the Benghazi Select Committee, because he was the one really pushing the IRS to look into your group. And so let me first start with that. Your thoughts on his now being one of the chief investigators of a different scandal in Washington, Benghazi.
For the record, and I'm just going to pause this for a second, just so you understand, Elijah Cummings sat on the IRS investigative committee, and he was constantly throwing bombs into the testimony of everyone who was testifying against the IRS. And it was inexplicable that, I mean, we get it, he's a partisan and he's an ideologue, but I mean, nobody could figure out why this guy was working so hard to cover up. Then it turns out he was actually involved in the scandal, and he was sending letters to the IRS prompting them to continue and go and work get even deeper into illegal activities. I mean, it's unconscionable. And now this guy has been appointed by Nancy Pelosi to sit on the Benghazi investigation committee. I mean, unbelievable. This is a fox who's got blood all over its muzzle, and now they're going to put him in another chicken coop and ask him to be a guard.
I think it's outrageous. Elijah Cummings has committed time and again de facto per se against us, defamation per se against us, and the thought that he is now sitting on that committee to preside over what is certainly one of the greatest scandals this administration's been involved in is just it's disgusting.
So back to the IRS issue for you now, obviously much closer to your heart for many obvious reasons. What is it? It's a bounty, it's a reward, and what does somebody have to do to get it?
Yes, the IRS bounty is just that. It is the people's bounty for the truth, put together by a group called the Voters Trust. It is an opportunity for citizens to come forward and speak to the truth. If they have information that will reveal what is really happening inside of the halls of the IRS, this is a way to incentivize that truth to come forward. And frankly, for more citizens to come forward and tell the stories that I hear all too often, people all across this country that are being targeted by this government. This is a way to empower the American people to hold government accountable.
This is interesting. So basically, if somebody knows, let's say, what Lois Lerner knows, who has asserted her Fifth Amendment privilege and won't speak, if somebody knows what she knows but has remained silent thus far, you're trying to encourage somebody like that to come forward and tell your group, speak publicly, and if it leads to the arrest of somebody responsible for this whole scheme, then you're going to pay the reward.
That's exactly right. Something's got to give. We see the censures and the misdemeanors that's not going to get to the bottom of this. There will be more bobbing, more weaving. The American people need to know the truth, and this is one way to get at it, we think.
Catherine, do you think that this will bring out further victims as well? Because at this point, the IRS scandal broke more than a year ago. It feels like it's pretty well fleshed out in terms of who was targeted and who was not. Why do you need more victims to come forward and self-identify?
Well, in the case of the IRS scandal, I think the big question on the table now is where's the truth? Who knew what when? That answer is still lurking out there somewhere. But yes, without question, one of the goals of the Voters Trust IRS Bounty project is to encourage people to come forward and tell more about what is happening. Stories I hear all the time, and not just the IRS. OSHA, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Bureau of Land Management, EPA, targeting citizens, targeting small businesses. This is happening on a level that I think would stun the average American citizen, but yet there's not really a repository, there's not a hub that's out there collecting those stories, and so that's what the IRS Bounty and Voters Trust is going to do, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
It's just so interesting because we started the show with this VA scandal and talked about the dangers potentially in big government trying to run big systems, and you all along have been an example of some other potential dangers of big government gone wrong on the citizenry. Catherine, good to see you.
There you go, folks. So here's the deal. I've created a hashtag today called Mutiny Bounty. And here's the game plan for this. You just simply put in the # on Twitter and put in the word mutiny followed by the word bounty. In other words, this is a mutiny by the American people and utilizing a bounty. I want you to understand the concept of something. There was a principle that was used by our founders during the early days of the founding of the creation of the nation. And there was a phrase called letters of marque and reprisal. And letters of marque and letters of reprisal were a license or a commission, if you will, to be used to put a private citizen in a position where they could capture and confiscate merchant ships of another nation. In other words, it kind of deputized an American citizen. They were issued to people to commit what would otherwise be considered like a piracy, okay? So if you were the captain of a ship, you were given a letter of marque, and it legally made you a police officer on the ocean, but representing the government. You were enabled to confiscate that ship, take it over, take the cargo from it, imprison the sailors, and so forth. And the concept of it was because the government knew, or I shouldn't say that, the individual who was issuing the letter of marque knew that we didn't have the wherewithal and the ability to do this on a national basis. We didn't have a navy big enough to patrol the whole ocean. So these letters were essentially issued, and it says in the Constitution, it provides in Article 1, Section 8, the 11th clause, it says, Congress shall have power to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. Now, in this case, what I'm suggesting is that we utilize the letter of marque and the principle of the letter of marque ourselves. We are, and there were a few rules. Let me read them to you. Names of person that are authorization to pass beyond borders with their command or their boat, right? Specifies the nationality of targets that were the cause of action. It authorizes the seizure and the destruction of assets or personnel that were targeted and what nationality they were from. It describes the offense for which the commission is issued as a reprisal, if it was a reprisal, or if it's a letter of marque, and a restriction on the time, manner, place, or amount of the reprisal. So here's my suggestion, America. We utilize the principle of the letters of marque, and we put a bounty out on the heads of traitors and liars, thieves, and corruption. Here's how it works. Mutiny Bounty is the hashtag. You can go straight to the website, which is called IRS Bounty.com. That's IRS Bounty.com. There you can make a direct donation, and it's a citizen donation or a business donation. The idea is to make sure that we have a way to hold government accountable by paying people to come forward and expose it. Apparently, it's not good enough that we need to save our nation. But I don't really care at this point, because I can tell you this. If we don't do something, and I mean something drastic and radical, to seize back control of the country, ladies and gentlemen, we're finished. We're done. And I'm okay with paying our countrymen to stand up and do the right thing. Now, it may even just be the fact that they say, listen, if I come out here, I'm going to lose my job and I'm going to be blackballed and I'll never get another job, and I specialize in something that is only functional as government. I mean, I get it, right? And so, but $1 million would, get me clean of my debt and allow me to, basically start over, because I know I'm going to get fired, so I'm going to be back to a private citizen again, and at least it will allow me to, function. Okay, I'm cool with that. Let's do it. IRSBounty.com, and you start using the hashtag Mutiny Bounty. We are going to pay a bounty for mutiny. Period. The truth is, it may be the only way for us to save our nation. And that is shameful, but it's reality. this doesn't have to be, as Ms. Engelbrecht mentioned, this does not have to be limited to the IRS. Again, she said very clearly, this could be the EPA. It could be, something with the Department of Defense. It could be something associated with the Pentagon. It could be something associated with the Department of the Interior. It could be something associated with the ATF. There are hundreds upon hundreds. The DEA, perfect example. How many guys in the DEA know what's going on with the money laundering of hundreds of millions, hundreds of billions of dollars? Look, our DEA is the number one drug dealer on the planet. They are. How many guys who work within the Department of the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, how many of them know and have information or access to information that would allow them to come out there and blow the whistle and expose something that Americans would say this is the equivalent of the VA scandal, but at the DEA or at the Department of the Interior or at the Department of Energy? That's what we need, ladies and gentlemen. We need Americans to stand up. Now, and for the record, by the way, the fellow who came out yesterday, and I don't want to take anything away from this guy, the guy at the VA who's a police officer there, he's a detective in the Veterans Administration Police. This guy came out yesterday, and he is exposing the fact that there's drug dealing happening there, that there are cover-ups about abuse, physical. I'm talking about beatings of VA patients and things like that, and that the VA is covering it up. He says he actually prepared a written plan and that there's drug dealing going on in the VA. In other words, these patients get there to the VA, they get their drugs, and a lot of it's painkillers and things like that. And then they go outside right in front of the hospital in a smoking area, and they're sitting there selling and bartering and trading their drugs. He said he prepared a written plan that would provide an undercover operation so that they could at least identify who the targets were of the drug sales. He submitted it to the VA. He did it 2 years ago, and he still hasn't gotten an answer back. Come on, folks. Come on, people. The thing for him was a guy named Todd Cutter, who was a 27-year-old guy who was in their residential drug rehab program, and he died of a drug overdose inside the hospital. I mean, kudos to him for having come out, by the way. And Thomas Fiore is his name. And I got to tell you, he might be one of the first people that should be given an award. Because this guy came out before he knew there was $1 million bounty out there. And he's going to get fired, you know that. And he's going to get persecuted and maybe even prosecuted. You see, that's the problem. How is it our government can prosecute people for coming out and doing the right thing? That's unconscionable to me. First of all, we shouldn't have to whistleblow on government. Government should be accountable in the first place. The fact that you've got to be a whistleblower is bad enough. But when you've got to be fearful to be a whistleblower that you're going to be persecuted and prosecuted, ladies and gentlemen, the world is completely upside down. We can't stomach it. We shouldn't stomach it. And I got to tell you, the VA and this exposure that's happening now is just, and more is coming out every day. Megyn Kelly did an exclusive last night where she talked, and she had a litany of every notice that they were given, the VA, about this, that was given to the White House about the VA's problems. Memo after memo after notice from the IG even. The Inspector General. And here, yesterday, Obama came out, or the other day, came out and said, I can't comment on it until the investigation is complete. He's had repeated investigations, including Senate investigations, that gave him written reports that exposed it. Again, he's a flippin' liar. He knew what was going on. He had reports, written reports, testimony, over and over and over. The Senate knew, the House knew, the White House knew, every person in the administration knew. The only people that didn't know was you. Listen, people, do you realize that the budget, and here's a staggering statistic. The budget for the VA is $90 billion a year. $90 billion. There was an article posted on Fox this morning about a guy who has been to Guantanamo Bay 30 times in 4 years during the Bush administration, 2005 to 2009. And he has done a study on the VA, or the equivalent thereof, the medical services that are applicable to the terrorists that are held at Guantanamo Bay. The patient-to-doctor ratio in Guantanamo Bay is 1.5 inmates to one doctor. Okay? 1.5. The VA and the veterans doctor-to-patient ratio, or patient-to-doctor ratio, is 35 patients to one doctor. You're telling me that there's one doctor for every 1.5 patients at Guantanamo and one doctor for every 35 patients in the veterans system. And by the way, there are 22 million vets in the United States, only 9 million or so of which actually go to are VA qualified. So that ought to tell you something. Where is all the money going? $90 billion a year? I'll tell you where it's going. To fraud, theft, mismanagement, malfeasance, criminal activity. Okay. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to tackle the federal land takeovers that leave our border wide open and exposed. And it's intentional. This is the named location. Because the federal government is seeking to undermine, with this new national monument designation, they're seeking to undermine the Border Patrol. It's going to leave the border wide open. And guess what? Border Patrol and local police, state police, county police, everybody is barred from having access to the land. It's got to be left wide open and uninhabited and untraversed. Guess what? That's going to become a fort for illegal immigration. Make sure that you visit our friends over at Battery Station. BatteryStation.com is their website. You can visit those folks over there and get great products and services. They carry every kind of battery known to man. They ship nationwide. They also carry a host of other products which aren't generally on their website, but it gives you an idea of how you can communicate with them and what they do carry. Flashlights and all kinds of battery gear. They also carry all kinds of survival gear, bug-out bag stuff, self-reliance equipment and gear, and you can find them at BatteryStation.com. You can also call them at 417-257-7799. That's 417-257-7799. If you want to, you can visit them. They're located at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains, Missouri. If you get a chance, visit our friends over at AmericanResumeService.com. They've got a $200 resume package that they're putting together, and they're offering that to all the AVN listeners for a mere $100, of which they're then going to donate all of that money to this program to keep it on the air. It's a fundraiser for America's Voice Now, and you can benefit and participate. AmericanResumeService.com. Make sure that you explain to them that you heard about the program and you're a listener to AVN, and you'll qualify for a 50% reduction on their $200 resume package, and all of that money will be donated to America's Voice Now. I think it's a great program, and I'm very appreciative to them for doing so. Make sure that you see our friends at Pizza Hut, not only nationwide, but here, right in hometown West Plains. We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to America's Voice Now.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host here this morning. Glad to have you on board. If you're catching us live on our website, that's great news. I see a ton of you folks out there all over the upper Midwest. I see Chicago's out there, Baltimore. I see Springfield, Missouri, which is kind of close to me. I see Medford, Oregon. I see Seattle area. I see Florida out there, Texas out there, Southwest. Not quite sure what state that's in. Glad to have you guys out there listening to us this morning. If you'd like to participate in the program, you can give us a call on our new phone line services, which have been provided for us by Patriot FB Radio. You can call us at our phone line, our listener call-in line at 573-453-5505. In this segment this morning, we're going to be talking about the federal land takeover for the new national monument that was designated by Obama on Wednesday, declaring 500,000 acres. 500,000 acres, folks. And here's the problem. It butts up right against the Mexico border, and he's declaring it as a national monument. Now, this will make this the largest swath of land to be set aside for that purpose since he took office. And here's the problem. The environmentalists are cheering and jumping up and down in glee. The problem is that everybody else in the country is worried about a couple of things. One, that will completely and permanently shut this property down from any access for anything that would resemble the nation's natural resources that are on that property, including natural gas, oil, mineral deposits, and what have you. Two, because it's right up against the border, it can't be patrolled. In other words, it can be patrolled right on the border's edge itself. But inland is where the problem is. And this is such a huge area, your border patrol will be limited and blocked from being able to have access to it. The states themselves will not be able to patrol it. Private citizens won't be able to gain access to it. So essentially, it's going to become the massive hidey hole for tens of thousands of illegal immigrants violating our borders. It's willful, it's intentional, and it's inexcusable that he's doing this. Not to mention the fact that the push is on all over the nation to free up all of this land that's already under control of the federal government. For the record, and we just dealt with this with the Bundy Ranch issue, 84% of the state of Nevada is federally owned. What? I mean, that's insane. The federal government is prohibited and barred by the Constitution itself, ladies and gentlemen, from ownership of land outside of the 10 square miles of Washington, D.C. And tiny isolated islands, tiny, for forts, magazines, and things like military bases and post offices and stuff like that. That's it. You can't own, you don't need 500 million acres. I'm sorry, 500,000 acres. I apologize. 500,000 acres. Law enforcement is all upset about this, as they should be, because they'll be barred from having access to use it and to patrol it and identify where the threat is on a national security basis. I am so tired of hearing government say, oh, it's a national security matter. It's a big secret. We can't talk to you about it because it's national security. Meanwhile, they're doing anything and everything they can to undermine our national security, not only internationally, but domestically. Harry Reid came out yesterday and said Obama is likely to have to, and it was that was his way of pointing it out, have to bypass Congress on immigration because it can't get done. He came out and said Obama may have to act on immigration. Well, let me tell you something, America. You and I can consider this to be a terroristic threat, and that's a legal term. Harry Reid made a terroristic threat to the United States of America because what he did is he encouraged the President of the United States to act outside the constitutionally prohibited boundaries of his office to break the law. And not only is he advocating that the president do, he's telling Congress to do so too. And he betrayed his nation, all in a single statement. His removal from office, at a minimum, should be our only response. The truth of the matter is, folks, if you're not at this stage in the game cognizant of the level of treason and betrayal, not just by the Obama administration and the ideologues on the left, but the ideologues on the right too. What do I mean by that? I mean, how many of these people in elected roles as representatives of the conservative party are working against you? It's not limited just to the issues of immigration, although many of them are on board with that too, including John Boehner. He's just trying to figure out a way he can do it without getting lynched. You see, I mean, that is the problem, folks. He's trying to figure out a way to do it without getting lynched. They're talking about they have to do this by sometime this summer, between June and August, because they got to get it done before the midterm. Now, what's even more stunning and amazing to me is that they're doing this under pressure from these illegal alien groups that, I mean, exist here in the country, and we don't even do anything to kick them out. I mean, there's no real focus on enforcement of any kind, and even when that enforcement, you know, the president's been lying to us saying he's the number one deporter in chief and all that crap. Well, let me tell you something. It's all of that. It's all human excrement, lies to you, and it pours out of his mouth like water out of a bucket. Reid the other day went out there to a group, and there are a couple of groups that are specifically addressing this issue and saying that we better do what they tell us. And these are groups of illegals operating within our own country. I mean, listen, folks, this is the equivalent of having a burglar stand in your living room who is ordering you and telling you what you better do while breaking the law after you've given him tea and cookies, trying to be nice. Dick Durbin came out and backed him up. Said he's spoken to Obama about halting deportations and presented him with documents outlining the case and his legal authority to do so. He said he didn't know whether the administration lawyers would agree with his analysis. I believe he has the capacity to move further in executive orders and administrative action to protect innocent people from deportation. That was Dick Durbin. That's it, right out of the horse's mouth. You see, we have senators. We have congressmen. We have elected, unelected, accountable, unaccountable individuals in the country who are making public statements of treason. Public statements of treason, folks. Why so harsh a word? Because you're violating the Constitution. It can't be considered anything else. The end result of constantly violating the constitutional prohibitions against importation or against the illegal immigration issue and all these other things that they've done, that when you break the Constitution, it's not just a misdemeanor. It's high crimes. High crime. What is a high crime? A high crime is not a big crime. A high crime is misusing your high power of office. And treason is defined as high crimes and misdemeanors. Trying to destroy your own nation. Seeking to overthrow. Well, what is this? What has this become other than a coup? Is this not a coup? Are we not living under one? No, it wasn't abrupt as the one in Thailand the other day, where the military started driving around in tanks right down the middle of the city street. But Thailand, let's not forget, isn't the size of Florida. People. We have a Senate Majority Leader who just came out and gave us all the evidence we need to convict him of a criminal act of a terroristic threat, to convict him of breaking the Constitution. At minimum, that's a felony, people. At minimum, it's a felony. And he's advocating and inciting criminal activity on the part of someone else. These are high crimes. This federal land takeover will assist and extend the participation of the violation of our borders, which is the goal. They want it. Boehner comes out and says, once again, the president has chosen to bypass the legislative branch. You just said it, John. Do something about it. Listen. People, don't you see how out of hand this is? Don't you realize and recognize how far this has gone? I mean, I wouldn't trust Boehner to tell me what the time of day was if I was wearing 3 watches and he was wearing 10. But he hits the nail on the head. Once again, the president has chosen to bypass the legislative branch. That's all you need to hear. He goes on to say other things, and I'll read them to you. But that in and of itself is an indictment. He says, and in this case, doing so in a manner that adds yet another challenge in our ongoing efforts to secure the southern border. At a time of continued cartel violence in Mexico, we should not be putting any additional restraints on efforts to protect our borders. By turning this Oregon Valley or Oregon Mountain Monument into a national monument and essentially blocking access to the property. Listen, even the Huffington Post is not 100% behind this thing. Half a million acres in southern New Mexico. As if, I don't remember the percentage of New Mexico that's under federal ownership, but it's like 60-something%. Now it's going to jump to what, 68, 70, 75? I don't know. The Oregon Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument near Las Cruces will be the largest monument as Obama has designated so far during his presidency. Jay Carney says the designation will help generate $7.4 million in revenue from tourism. Are we that desperate now that we're selling half a million acres for $7.4 million in ad revenue or in tourist revenue? You got to be kidding me. No, it has nothing to do with that. That's just a way to get people to sell it and let the government steal from you. Don't you realize that this is the equivalent of eminent domain on a statewide scale? Go back and read the 10th Amendment again and again and again and again and again. Print it out, carry it with you, and read it. The federal government is prohibited constitutionally from owning land. What more don't you need to know about, or what more do you need to know? They're going to create a buffer zone for law enforcement. A buffer zone. You think the illegals who are pouring over our border in staggering numbers care about buffers? No, they look at this as a hidey hole, a place where law enforcement can't get to us. They're prohibited from coming here. What are we doing? Ceding 500 million or 500,000 acres, 500,000 acres back to Mexico? Because that's what it sounds like to me. We're giving 500,000 acres back to Mexico because it's right on the border. This will become what? Old Mexico light? New Mexico given back? I don't get it. I mean, the county sheriff in the area recalled the times his deputies and federal agents were shot at as they pursued suspected drug smugglers in this area. He talked about stolen cars used to ferry drugs through the desert and past the Border Patrol checkpoints. He says, this is Todd Garrison, the county sheriff. He says, if we have no ability to patrol that area, crime is going to increase. It will be akin to the Organ Pipe National Monument in Arizona. I wonder how many years it will be before we have to post signs that say, enter at your own risk. Rob Bishop from Utah sent a letter asking Obama to refrain from establishing this monument. He said that the legislation should be allowed to work its way through Congress and allowing border security concerns to be addressed first. You see, the president was never intended to have this much authority and power, folks. Steve Pierce, he's the Republican in the congressional district that's covered by this area. He proposed a designation of 55,000 acres, not 500,000 acres. He said years of work went into developing a plan that would be acceptable to ranchers, business owners, sportsmen, conservationists, the liberals, the liberal environmental extremists, and everything else. And Obama ignored that, quote, with a stroke of a pen. Their main argument for doing this is that it will generate $7.4 million in economic activity from visitors and business opportunities. And the designation could lead to more federal funding and staffing for the Bureau of Land Management and the Border Patrol that enforces rules throughout the area. Bunk. So what you're saying is it's going to generate $7.4 million in economic activity from visitors and business opportunities, which you're promptly going to spend 3 times that expanding the Bureau of Land Management, who again has no constitutional authority to exist, and then you're going to pump some more money into Border Patrol that will be wasted because we're not patrolling the border anyway, and even when we catch them, we're not doing anything with them. Folks, listen, I'm all for clean water. I'm all for clean air. I'm all for having limited access to certain pieces of property that, have historical or aesthetic or some kind of value. But it shouldn't be done by the federal government. It's that simple. The federal government has no right and or place and or authority and or power to give itself the authority to do that. None. And every time we allow this to happen, every time we allow it to go through, every time we don't mutiny as a nation, we empower them to come back and do even more, act even worse, commit greater atrocities against us and the nation. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Secretary of Defense Hagel admits the New World Order is being built. I mean, you got to be kidding me, folks. You're going to hear it out of the horse's mouth. And I'm just sick to death of the whole mess. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a moment. Before we go, if you have an opportunity, there's a couple places I'd like you to go and visit. One is atlassurvivalshelters.com. That's atlassurvivalshelters.com. Or you can go to facebook.com/Atlas Survival Shelters. They produce a survival shelter that can be buried in the ground. And if you're looking for something like this for your family where you can put it on a piece of land, either within the property where you live or exist or some piece you own, it's a great opportunity. They have units that range in price from, $20,000 or $30,000 on up to luxury units that cost 5 times that. They'll bury them in the ground for you, where you and your family can store and protect and prepare for any kind of a natural disaster. About the only thing these things won't withstand is a flood, because they're underground. Hello. But I know the fellow who runs this business, and he's a good man, and he's got a great product out there. So, if you're interested, survivalbypreparedness.com. That's Survival by Preparedness has some products out there. They also have some natural grass-fed beef services that you can get, and they ship across the country. And grass-fed beef is good for you. It's natural without any nonsense and additives and so forth and so on there. Make sure that you visit our friends over at Battery Station at batterystation.com. Make sure that you see our friends over at Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut is a supporter of this program. And, I know that this program gets distributed across the country, so it's not just local. But the Pizza Hut here in our area has been a major, major supporter of our program. So if you're in the West Plains area, there's one on Porter Wagoner Boulevard, and I would really encourage you to go in there. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, they have a reduced lunch special. On Tuesday night, it's kids under 12 eat free, and it's family night. And so they have a salad bar and a pizza bar and pasta bar and all kinds of things. Just a great place to grab a quick lunch or a nice inexpensive dinner with the family. And if you happen to go to Pizza Hut here, make sure that you let them know that Mike from America's Voice Now sent you over there, and they'll be happy to take great care of you. All of the servers in that place know me, and they will take exceptional care of you. We're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll cover this issue about Secretary of Defense Hagel admits the New World Order is being built as we speak. Stop denying the reality, folks. You can only hide your head in the sand or in your for so long. We'll be right back. Catch America's Voice Now on the web, whether you catch us on a podcast later, whether you catch us live on radio, whether you catch us on Big Country 99 in Houston, Missouri, covering the whole south central area of Missouri, whether you catch us on our own website at America's Voice Now or Patriot FB or constitutionclub.ning.com or patriotfbradio.com, or whether you catch us anywhere else, including our own listen line, It's a great opportunity for you to get educated, get informed, get angry, and fight back. You know, we're not just a media organization that is sitting out here telling you about, you know, whatever the news of the day is. We expose what the Ministry of Propaganda is trying to pump into your mind and to manipulate you. And the reason we're doing that is because the onslaught and the assault on your ability to creatively and critically think for yourself is, I mean, overwhelming. And we get it. We know it. I understand it. I see it every day. We encourage you to use critical thinking. We encourage you to listen to both sides of a position, gather enough information so that you can make informed decisions, so that you are able to come to a rational, logical conclusion, understanding the underlying facts around an issue, which you have to gather from multiple sources. You're never going to get it all from one, even me. And then you have a solid enough base by which to make a position or formulate an opinion. And you can defend that opinion because you know why you hold it. I can't stress strongly enough the idea of being, and I know, I mean, listen, people say to me all the time, but I don't have the time to do all the study and research you do. Well, with all due respect, folks, I don't either. I do this thing as a volunteer effort for you. I don't need this for me. I don't need this education. I already got it. I study this stuff all the time. On my time, my dime. I don't do this for me. It bothers me sometimes. I post stuff up on Facebook. I don't see any shares to it. I spend a lot of time in the morning creating these little reviews that I think that you should be reading in order to understand what that article's about. That's why I do it. Now, I know Facebook cuts it down to one sentence, but if you never read it, then what's the point? And if you do read it but don't share it, then really what's the point? Am I just talking to myself? Am I bouncing this off of a wall? You see, you have an obligation to do your part too. And critical thinking, and I'm not saying I'm the critical thinking guru. I'm just saying I'm trying to give you enough impetus and enough basic raw material to whet your appetite to go out there and find out more. I read both the progressive, liberal arguments on things, and I read the conservative ideas on things. And I make sure I intersperse that with some what I construe to be independent research of my own. Then I formulate an opinion. Then when someone says, why do you have that opinion? I can accurately articulate where I got it, why I have it, and I've got foundations that go all the way down to bedrock. I can defend it. I can prove to you this works. Next time you're in a political discussion with someone and they say something that you don't agree with, say to them, why do you believe that? And keep using that questioning to get to the basis and the bedrock of where they got their opinion. What you're going to find inevitably in every single instance is that what ends up happening is when they run out of reasons why they believe it, if they even can come up with one, other than the fact that they heard somebody else say it and it sounded good. See, all they're doing is reiterating somebody else's talking points. That's it. All they're doing is they're parroting someone else's opinion they heard, which either supports their predisposed bias or they didn't really have any foundational understanding of it anyway. I mean, ask people who talk to you about banking and then ask them to clarify, well, what's some aspect of banking? And they more than likely can't even answer. Ask most people what fractional reserve banking is, who say, I don't like the Federal Reserve. Why don't you like the Federal Reserve? Because they're bad. They boom and bust us. Okay. Well, they use something called fractional reserve banking to authorize the member banks to work. Do you know what fractional reserve banking is? Ask them that. They won't be able to give you an answer. Ask them who owns the Fed. Who is the Fed made up of? They can't tell you. Well, how can you have an opinion about something if you don't know anything about it? The problem, ladies and gentlemen, is the entire nation is running around repeating talking points from other idiots who you wouldn't give the time of day, you wouldn't trust to walk your dog. Guess who's the prime knucklehead that did that yesterday? Chuck Hagel. Came out and hailed the emergence of the New World Order in a visit when he was out there talking to Poland. It's a time that we are seeing a new and early 21st century world order being built. Excuse me? Why is Chuck Hagel telling us that there is a new world order being built? I think Chuck Hagel slipped. But, you see, the nation as we see it today is just full of traitors and betrayal. Just recognize, folks, that everybody involved in what's going on around here is, and what's involved in every one of these people that, you know, allegedly represent us, that we allegedly elected, right? All of this, you know, our founders warned us that this is not, we didn't elect despotism. And that's what this is. The Washington Post was the one who broke this report on this, this thing. And you know what? We knew that Hagel was going to be a problem back before he got confirmed. In fact, I found two older articles, one of which was in the Business Insider, that was from January, back in January 28th of 2013. So it's a year and 3-4 months ago, right? And here's what the article says. Hagel warned Obama of a rogue Pentagon leading a, quote, new world order. That's why I say it's a slip, what he said yesterday. Hagel warned Obama of rogue Pentagon leading a new world order. As Chuck Hagel seeks support for his nomination to become Secretary of Defense, Bob Woodward, the reporter, has released a story about a White House trip the former senator made in 2009. The Post reported, and here was their report. According to an account that Hagel later gave and is reported here for the first time, he told Obama, "We are at a time where there is a new world order. We don't control it. You must question everything, every assumption, everything they," meaning the military and the diplomats associated with our country and international, "tell you. Any assumption 10 years old is out of date. You need to question our role. You need to question the military. You need to question what are we using the military for." And he warned the president not to get bogged down in Afghanistan. And he expressed his concern at that time over the 50,000 additional troops that, you know, had been sent over there. The report from the Washington Post says that Hagel went so far as to say privately back in 2011, the president has not had commander-in-chief control of the Pentagon since Bush's senior was president. Let me say that to you again. Hagel, in 2011, said, the president has not had commander-in-chief control of the Pentagon since Bush the senior was president. I've got to tell you, people, when you hear that kind of statement coming out of a guy who's now the Secretary of Defense, Doesn't that throw red flags all over the play for you? I guess that's the if you can't beat them, join them theory. I mean, is that what it is? The Washington Post came out and said, after that comment, if Hagel is confirmed, as it appears likely, this is back in 2013 now, January, a year and 3 months ago, right? A year and a quarter ago. If Hagel is confirmed, as it appears likely, he and the president will have a large task in navigating the New World Order. You see, people who are out there pitching and arguing that there is no such thing as a New World Order, there is no such thing as Agenda 21, it's all some figment of your imagination, you're a conspiracy theorist, and it's all a bunch of bunk. Well, the truth is, you know those people aren't critical thinkers. How can I say that? Make a statement like that? Very easily. The truth is, if they were critical thinkers and they were informed about the issue, they would know that Agenda 21 is an actual program that has been in play in the United Nations, and it's their name for it, not ours. I mean, I know Agenda 21 has, when people hear it, it has all the hallmarks of a ghost story to it. Ah, come on. It has all the hallmarks of, the JFK conspiracy of assassination. But it doesn't mean it's not true, folks. It doesn't mean it's not real. It just means that the manipulators, the propaganda masters, have put doubt in your mind. Like a prosecutor. They've put, like a defense attorney, they've put doubt in your mind about the guilt of the person up on the stand. Does it mean he didn't do it? I don't know. What it means is I'm not so sure anymore because now I have doubt. That's the whole idea of a defense attorney. Put doubt in your mind. These people are defending the indefensible. A global, one world, unified government. What part of the evidence that's mounting up don't you see that participates to that? That lends itself to that parallels that agenda? Well, the designation of 500,000 acres out in the West, and the designation of 500,000 acres out in the West that assists illegal immigration, that's already so bold, so blatant, so rampant, that we may as well not even have any rules about it. Hello? Think about that for a minute. The takeover of federal property at a stunning and astounding rate. The idea that all of this property has to be ceded off, locked down, and left as wild lands untouched by human intervention, human habitation, human access. Doesn't that sound like the Agenda 21 concept to you? Turn the entire western United States, except for isolated pockets, into inaccessible land. To turn it back into wildlands, back to nature. Get humans to isolate and tuck themselves into these clustered areas of human habitation where we're corralled in a nation of untold and unlimited resources. That's the game plan. Eliminate the sovereignty of nation states. Eliminate the sovereignty of borders. Make people unified citizens of not a nation, not a nationality, but a geographic zone. That zone would be what? Canada, U.S., Mexico. We already know what the zone is. That plan's been underway for decades now. The merger of the United States, Canada, and Mexico. I've put up articles on America's Voice Now about it. I showed you stuff from the New American that proved beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we were working towards, and are still working towards, a North American merger a merger of all of the nations of North America into a single political entity. Don't believe me? What the heck do you think the European Union is? Is the European Union not a collective merger? The nation-state's sovereignty is gone. The borders don't matter. You're now not a citizen of France. You're not a citizen of Germany. You're a citizen of the EU, the European Union. Ask yourself, is the New World Order principle good for you? Is it good for you? Is it good for your family? Is it going to benefit you? Or, with the loss of national sovereignty, individual self-determination, individual free will, and the fact that you can be herded effectively. You see, think of it this way. Up until now, for the last 230 years, the United States of America has been the only pillar holding up the principles of liberty and freedom over the entire planet. One pillar holding up all the works. Everyone else in the world, when they wanted an example to follow, when they wanted an opportunity to look at a country that had achieved and citizens that had achieved what they'd like to achieve. I mean, my son said something funny to me the other day. We were taking a walk, and he said to me, there's a common phrase in Russia that, those Americans, they don't even have bread lines. It's all in the context, people. To the Russian, when they say, we don't have bread lines, we don't have bread lines. They looked at that and said, things are so bad in the United States, they don't even have bread lines. When in reality, we don't have bread lines because we don't need them. Think about that for a minute. You see, the context of how something is given to you and the context in which it's said or stated can change everything. Something as simple as grammar. It's all in how it's presented. I'll give you a perfect example. You probably heard this one. Hey, we're going to eat, Grandpa. Hey, we're going to eat, Grandpa. Now, if you're Grandpa, phrase 1 means, boy, am I hungry. Thank goodness dinner's ready. If you are Grandpa and you hear phrase 2, it means, where's my gun? Hey, we're going to eat, Grandpa. Hey, we're going to eat, Grandpa. I mean, people, think about it. Things are so bad in the United States, they don't even have bread lines. Is that what you want for us? For your children? Your children's children? Do you want to be part of a system, frankly, that, one, takes your opportunity to not have to, that steals from you the option of not having to stand in a bread line? Remember that under totalitarian governments, everyone suffers equally. Under a new world order, what makes you think it's going to be better? I mean, look, if the federal government is so big right now they can't manage the economy, if it's so big they can't manage the little VA, if it's so big they can't manage Obamacare and the healthcare debacle, if it's so big they can't control the IRS, if it's so big that all of these organizations are out of control. The ATF's out there selling guns willy-nilly to the cartel managers. What makes you think they can control it when it's even bigger? It's not about controlling it. It's all about controlling you. And I don't really give a darn whom's at the helm, whether it be Republican or Democrat. Totalitarianism is totalitarianism. And what color uniform you wear, and whether you're red or whether you're blue, or whether you give me patriotic histrionics or futuristic histrionics, makes no difference to me at all. I'm not a slave to anybody. And I'm not about to allow myself to become one. Facts are facts, America. You can't change the facts. You can open your mind and use critical thinking to make sure that you understand them in the proper context. You can make sure that when you shout, "Hey, Grandpa," he understands that it's not time to grab the gun. The truth is, we're so far down the road at this point that I'm not sure whether or not we can actually change things. I posted up just to put it into perspective for you. I posted a thing up on our Facebook today about a restaurant that had a sign in there that says "No weapons, no concealed firearms," and a sign in the door. It was one of those Chipotle restaurants. And they're very liberal, very anti-gun, very foo-foo, modern, urban, yuppie, go, go, go. Restaurant had a sign, "No weapons, no concealed firearms." At 9 o'clock at night, 3 armed gunmen walked in and robbed the place. They assaulted 2 of the employees. Any surprises here, folks? See, here's the problem. The nation's been infected with political correctness. And I wrote this slogan here. PC is widely known as a mental disease, often rampant in urban areas, which has attacked the United States of America with a ferocity unknown anywhere on earth or any time in history. The CDC comes out with a new statement that says, quote, "We just got a $10 million grant to study gun violence so that we can nourish and feed this virus and help expand its vicious spread and attack on the nation. Our goal is to infect everyone so that no one notices when they contract it. If we're successful, the entire nation will never know they've been infected, and unicorns will fill the skies. Flowers will bloom and blossom. The heavens will roll back, and the nation will be at joyous peace." That's what the Agenda 21 people, the New World Order people, the One World Government people, the no borders and no sovereignty people want you to believe. The truth is, they're the ones that are the most dangerous to you. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. We'd like to hear from you. You can communicate with me directly at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. You can help support this program and keep it on the air. You can do so by visiting our website and using the PayPal link there, or you can mail a check to us or a money order or whatever you like. If you're a business and you'd like to support us by donating a product or a service that we can sell or auction off or some other way where it doesn't actually require cash out of your pocket, we'd love to have that kind of help. You can communicate with me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. Have a good weekend. God bless. We'll see you on Monday.